part of this whole few moments that I just took is the fact that we're told something really special in Scripture. Now, I know I have the whole passage, but I want to give you just Isaiah 40:31 for a moment, since that's what we've been talking about. Verse 31 says, other page, thank you. But those who trust in the Lord will renew their strength. See, right there. If you trust in the Lord, you will renew your strength. Then it says, because there's a semicolon there, that's the end of a thought, right? They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not become weary. They will walk and not faint. So there's different stages. There's soaring, there's running, and there's walking. And that can be compared to us as Christians. New Christians walk, you know. The ones that are active and kind of know what's going on, they run. They make things happen. And then the ones who have been around for a while, that have this well-established relationship with God and are in communion with Him and doing His work, soar, soar above the others. And so I thought that was pretty awesome. And matter of fact, I have a handout. Instead of me, I'm going to tell you a couple things that are in this, but this is on my table. As I've been known to do, is to give handouts that speak specifically as to why we should wait upon the Lord. Because it's really important that you have this, because we see way too many guys leave here early. We see too many guys who come up with their own plan after thinking that God had a plan for them, acknowledging, more than just thinking, acknowledging that God opened the door for them to be here, and then they go, hey, I got something I got to take care of, and there they are, they're gone. Anybody know somebody like that just split in the last week or two? Yeah. Sad to say, I know too many like that. So, the first part of this, the reason to wait upon the Lord, is so that God might prepare us. That makes sense, doesn't it? Hey, if you got something big, a big goal, you have to get prepared for how that's going to happen. You need to make plans. You need to make preparations, physically, financially, mentally, in every which way. And so God has a plan for your life. Wow, I bet that's the first time you heard that one, huh? So if He's got a plan for your life, that means a plan. If you know what a plan is, that means that there are parts, procedures, steps in order to accomplish that ultimate goal. You know that we're to be conformed into His image. I mean, Jesus. It doesn't mean that you're going to look like He did literally. But have you had someone say, boy, you remind me of your dad, or your mom, or your uncle, or your grandpa, or somebody like that? Anybody have that happen to them? It's because you have traits of that person. Okay? Wow, wouldn't it be great for someone to say, man, you remind me of Jesus. In the early days of Christianity, that was a slur to be called a Christian. Oh, you're just like a little Jesus, you Christian, you. Now it's considered, well, by most, it's considered as something worthy. It's actually intended as a slur again. Oh, you're one of them Christians, huh? Oh, yeah, okay. Oftentimes it ends up being like that. But there's ways that God prepares us. It's by prayer, it's by study, it's self-examination, and I dare say, most importantly, is trust. Anybody been burned? Anybody been lied to and frauded and taken advantage of? Thanks for being honest. So when it's like, trust me, you're like, trust who? You? What? I don't even know you. And now here's this big, awesome, wonderful God who loves you and has a plan for your life. And He's saying, trust me. Son, just sit still for a little bit, okay? Let me work in you to accomplish what I have in store for you. I use these passages so often, and for very good reason, because they mean a lot to me, but also because it's God's word. Isaiah 55, verses 8 and 9 say that this is the Lord's declaration. My thoughts are not your thoughts. My ways are not your ways. But this is what the Lord declares. For higher than the heavens are above the earth are my ways than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. Okay? So if you think you got a plan, buddy, you got nothing on the Lord, okay? He's got a plan. And it's far better than anything you could ever imagine. I thought I had a plan. And then I had another plan. And then I had another plan. And after, I don't even know how many plans had failed, I turned my life over to God and I said, I don't have any plans. They destroyed my life and everyone around me. What do you got? And he says, now watch. Watch and see what I can do. Okay? Now, I'm living a dream. I'm doing exactly what I've always wanted to do my whole life. And I get paid money for it. And I have a wonderful wife who loves me and supports me morally, and I mean, is a wonderful part of my team, an important part of my team.
Amen.
And I had no idea what God had in store. I was doing men's ministry for 10 years before I even thought that it was necessary to have a helpmate. But he showed me in time. It wasn't the time during those 10 years, but then he let me know it was time. And that's when I started to look, and ultimately God confirmed, I don't know how many times over, that we were meant for each other. All right, so you know that God needs to prepare us. The next thing is that it's so that God may develop his providence. Now, that's a big fancy word, but in order for God to provide, that's a key part of that, providence. And also that God is perfect in how he provides, in what he provides, and when he provides. Timing is crucial for anything. If you ever tried to bake something, and if you didn't follow directions and you, hey, that smells like it's done, and you just pull it out, it's probably not done, is it? Is it? No. I tried that yesterday with Barb. I said, hey, those are cookies. Are those done? She's like, no, not yet. Didn't hear the bell go off. Okay. Too many of y'all are just taking off before the bell goes off. You know? You got to be still. I know that's hard, and especially in today's world, to be still is like, wait, I mean, God's got more stuff to do. I'm ready, man. Come on, let me go. This should be interesting. How many of you had to go back to school or had to finish an education, whether it's high school, college, where you got started, but you either had to go back and finish or you need to go back and finish? Raise your hand. That's easily half of everybody in here. Is that from jumping too soon? I bet it was a factor. There were some things maybe out of your control that it's just like, I can't do this right now. I got other things I need to do, or that I have to do, whatever the case may be. But see, the idea of relying on God's providence is that he has seasons. God has a season in our lives for different things, different seasons. And when you find yourself in a particular season that's uncomfortable, that you don't like, well, you got to ride it out. Because if you don't, you got to go back into that season again and go through it again. How many of you found yourselves back somewhere where you didn't want to be? You thought you were done, and yeah, okay. It's not the place you want to be. And so it's also important that God is taking care of other things. It's not just you that's involved. Even though you think that the world revolves around you, and for some it may. No, not really. Sorry. You have to wait for God to do things in other people's lives. This prayer that you just caught the tailwind this weekend of what the answer to prayer was in my wife's life, that started in December. Yeah, December. Imagine how long she's been praying, we've been praying, waiting for what's God doing next. Well, I don't know, honey. You know how many times I've had this lesson handed to me in 3 months? Wait, 4 months. Well, yeah, 3 months.
Amen.
You know, it was a timing thing. It's all about timing. And, you know, things are always better when you wait. Think about a time where you were just saying, man, oh, what was it? There was a movie. I'm sorry for going to a movie for this, but it was a movie. A guy was just about to get out of prison, and he breaks out anyway. It was like he had already done years and years. And was that Shawshank? Was it? I think things just kind of went bad, and so he ended up going, yeah. But, you know, how many times have we been just right there? I mean, you can almost see the finish line, that we could be just done with that. And we're like, no, man, I got to bail. I got to bounce. That's the latest one, right? No, that's not the right one? All right. Whatever it is now, you know, I got to run. I'm running away. I can't do this. I can't handle it. You know, that verse where it says that God never gives you more than you can handle? Yeah, that's not in the Bible. Sorry. No, he says that there's no temptation that you can't handle. He doesn't say that he's not going to give you more than you can handle. Because then why wouldn't you need his help if you can already handle it? Think about it. See, I'm going to end up somewhere I don't need to go, so never mind. Sometimes our waiting is to let God work in other people's lives. That it's like, hey, I can do this for you. Let me help you out. And it's like, no, wait. Let me pray for you. I'm here for you. Let me know if I can help, but let them do it. It's hard for us enablers, for the people who have resources and want to help somebody to get that next step. Just give them that little push to help them on the way. And man, they end up getting shorted on the whole deal as a result because somebody else did it. Oh, yeah, that wasn't really them after all. It was somebody else stepped in. You know, when you do something the whole way through, when you finish, there's that sense of accomplishment. You got something that you've done, you know, or that the Lord has done in your life, whatever the case may be. And that's great. And in the same, sometimes people are a part of what is being done in your life. And because he waited in that season, that you have the opportunity to be a part of that and watching it come to fruition, to come to completion, which is awesome as well. And then the third thing is that so that we may know that he is God. Sometimes we put all of our efforts, all of our resources into trying to make something happen. Been there? Anybody? Mm-hmm. And when you do that, and you're like, well, I'm out of gas. I got nothing left. Then we get to see his power as he comes through. There's this passage where it's 1 Kings chapter 19 in the Old Testament here. Elijah is on a journey. He had this showdown in 1 Kings 18 with a bunch of prophets of Baal, and God showed up and did an amazing thing. But in verse 9, in 1 Kings 19, Elijah has an encounter with God. It says he entered a cave there and spent the night. Suddenly, the word of the Lord came to him, and he said to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He replied, "I've been very zealous for the Lord, God of armies, but the Israelites have abandoned your covenant, torn down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they're looking for me to take my life." Then he said, "Go out and stand on the mountain in the Lord's presence." At that moment, the Lord passed by. A great and mighty wind was tearing at the mountains and was shattering cliffs before the Lord. Just take a moment, put that in your mind. Imagine that. God's coming, and before he even gets there, there's this huge, mighty wind. Think of, anybody been in a hurricane other than me? I've been in a couple of them. Okay, then you know what hurricane force winds are like. I mean, they got that. I've been into some malls and places where they've got wind tunnel and endure hurricane force winds, 70 miles an hour, and it doesn't compare, man. And when you see stuff sticking in telephone poles and trees being hurled, you know that's pretty serious. This wind was tearing at the mountains and was shattering cliffs before the Lord. I mean, just pieces of mountain just falling down. This is how mighty and awesome a God we serve, that we love and worship. But the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake. Now, anybody been through an earthquake? Just me? 2, 3? Okay. Listen, the land turns into the sea. It rolls. It's got waves to it. When you see those waves move, it is bizarre. I thought I was tripping. I was having a flashback. Seriously, I did. Because things were happening. And when I was in Japan when this happened. And I was on this little island called Okinawa. And when I came out of my dorm, because I was hearing this weird creaking and like a train, you know, those things they say. And the furniture looks like it's vibrating and stuff's falling off. I got out of the building. And as I was out to the balcony about to go down the stairs, I looked out and I could see, because I've been out on the ocean as well, and it looked like these waves. And the buildings were going with the wave, you know, as well as it was passing through. It was bizarre. I mean, it was surreal. It was like, I couldn't believe it. And so earthquakes, though, you know, typically end in nothing but ruins. I mean, things are being shattered and falling apart. This is an incredible, awesome God that we serve. So it says that he wasn't in the wind and that he was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake, there was a fire. Now, I'm not going to ask you how many have been burned and been in fires. All right, but you get the idea. I mean, fire destroys and consumes anything and everything. And it says, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, there was a voice, a soft whisper. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. All right? We, as I've said, we serve a mighty and awesome God. But you know what? Sometimes, as big and awesome and powerful as God is, and all the things that he can do, that, I mean, when Jesus was here, all he had to do was say a word. He said shalom on a raging sea, and the ocean calmed itself and the wind stopped. A simple word, peace, be still. All right? And this same God is in the still, small quietness. So sometimes that's where you got to be. You need to be. This time out at the ARC is for a really great reason. Don't miss out on the reason that he's got you here. To have that still, small voice talk to you, you got to be quiet. That's the only way you're going to hear it. with all the commotion, with everything that's going on. Think about that. Huge windstorms, earthquakes going on, raging fire. And yet, God wasn't in any of that. It was only until all that passed that he got you alone. And that's where you are now. You have an opportunity here to hear from God. Amen. For your life to be forever changed. Amen. You will never be the same if you want that. And I believe you do, because that's what you're here for. Amen? Amen. All right. So, the other part of this, not only is so that we may know God, but it's to see evil defeated. To see his power at work. Then we should learn both hope and patience. See, those who wait upon the Lord, those who hope in the Lord, will not be disappointed. He's the one who strengthens, who heals, who binds, who fixes, who restores. He's the one who does all these things, but you got to be still. If you got a broken leg, you're not going walking, you're not going running, okay? Cast or no cast, it's not a good idea. You need to be still and let that bone heal. It takes, 6 to 8 weeks for a bone to heal? Imagine how many bones have been, not in a literal sense, but figuratively, been broken in you. How you had to get crushed in order to get here. What had to happen in your life? The fragments. And you're picking pieces up going, no, man, I'm good. You know? Stop it. You don't have to trust anyone else. You know DTA, right? Most of you guys do. That means don't trust anyone. Oh, I know stuff like that too, yeah. Hey, I was in jail more recently than you, okay? I was there just 48 hours ago as a visitor. As a guest who was let out when I wanted to leave. Didn't eat any of that nasty bologna or whatever that stuff is. Anyway, I don't want to digress here. Finally, it's so that we may learn to bear the greatest waiting of all, the wait for his return. Jesus is coming back. And if you haven't heard that, you did now, okay? Jesus, of all people, did some of the most incredible waiting, all right? One of the things in doing the research for this was to talk about the week of Passion. That was the week leading up from Palm Sunday to Easter Sunday. And when we got to that last part there, when it came to what we call Good Friday, that's when Jesus had to wait. Jesus made things happen the whole time. He had an incredible, awesome ministry where he touched thousands and thousands of people. But you know what happened? When he was handed over, when he was betrayed, he was handed over. First by Judas, but actually not first by Judas, first by God. It said that he was handed over. Romans 8:23 was the verse. For our chastisement, he was bruised and he was punished for our iniquities. And in Isaiah, it says that by his stripes we're healed. So he had to wait for all this to happen. He had to wait for the mock trials. He had to wait to be beaten. He had to wait to be crucified. He had to wait in a tomb for 3 days. He chose to wait. He didn't have to, but I mean, that was God's plan. But this is God in the flesh. He could have done whatever he wanted to. Amen. He chose to humble himself, to become what no one else could, and that was the sacrificial lamb to pay the price for our sins. Amen. He waited, and that's all he's asking you to do, is to wait upon the Lord. We had some awesome songs. I know I didn't cover all the other verses. I did cover Isaiah 40:31. But, you know, the verses that you were singing, I hope from the bottom of your heart earlier, I will lay me down. You know, when it comes to waiting on the Lord, it's like I need to put my will down and say, Lord, what do you want for my life? I want what you want because it's far better than anything I can do. Then there was the verse that says, your love surrounds me in the eye of the storm. You've been through some storms. The eye of the storm is the calm, but man, just outside of that calm is the fiercest part of that storm. The highest winds, the most devastation. And that's what it took in order for you to be here. Those storms. I don't know how many you do. And then, I know you're able. My hope is in you alone. You know, to know that we're supposed to be hoping. It's not just like, oh, I hope Santa Claus comes. You know? I can't wait for the Easter Bunny. No, there's something of much greater substance that we're talking about here. There's someone who is awesome. Man, if you read Isaiah, you're like, well, it's Old Testament. You ought to read Isaiah. I mean, it is deep. It is intense, especially from right here, from 40 and through the end. It talks about who God is, of all that he's done. I mean, I got to give some of this to you. Maybe this will help put you in the right frame of mind. Do you not know? Have you not heard? Has it not been declared to you from the beginning? Have you not considered the foundations of the earth? God is enthroned above the circle of the earth. Its inhabitants are like grasshoppers. He stretches out the heavens like thin cloth and spreads them out like a tent to live in. He reduces princes to nothing and makes judges of the earth irrational. They're barely planted, barely sown. Their stem hardly takes root in the ground when he blows on them and they wither. And a whirlwind carries them away like stubble. Who will you compare me to? Who is my equal? Asked the Holy One. Look up and see. Who created these? He brings out the starry host by number. He calls all of them by name. Because his great power and strength, not one of them is missing. You know, a star lasts millions of years. If science really knows what they're talking about. The fusion that's going on there, I mean, you see stars all over the skies, and it says he hasn't lost one of them, and he has named every one of them. So, when you say my way is hidden from the Lord and my claim is ignored by my God, do you not know? Have you not heard? Yahweh is the everlasting God, the creator of the whole earth. He never grows faint or weary. There is no limit to his understanding. He gives strength to the weary and strengthens the powerless. Youths may faint and grow weary, and young men stumble and fall, but those who trust in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. Keep working and watching. Amen. This doesn't mean you just sit there parked in the parking lot waiting for whatever. It's active faith. It's active searching and looking. Our final, the closing here today is going to be a worship song, because you got to trust somebody, okay? As much as you may not want to. Of all people to trust, God, his word, he says he won't fail you. Your expectations may not be met, but his will, because his are better than yours anyway. So trust that he has the right plan, the best plan. He's God. This song is going to touch your heart, and I pray that it becomes an anthem, that it plays in your head over and over, that you remember who you're trusting in. Because when you're trusting in Plenty of Fish, when you're trusting in Craigslist, when you're trusting in whatever it is that you're trusting in, the almighty dollar, that tax return, that X whatever, listen, God transcends all things. He knows all things. And when you put your hope in him, you can't lose. God bless you guys.